Imagine you're alone in the dead of night, rain hammering relentlessly against your window. But as the rain intensifies, you start to notice things. The flicker of lights, the echo of footsteps that shouldn't be there, the faint sound of a voice calling your name. These aren't just the tricks of your mind. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to explore 3 true rainy night horror stories. There's something creepy about rainy nights that amplifies fear. It's on nights like these when the world seems eerily quiet, yet danger lurks in the shadows. Some people have had horrifying experiences during these rainy nights, moments they'll never forget. Story 1 by Judith Samuel. It was a stormy night in Madagascar. Rain against the windows sounded disturbed. I had stayed up quite late doing the house chores. My son Marco and his wife Juliana had been at the hospital, waiting for their baby. I could not sit still, awaiting any news. At 48, I never felt this mixed, so eager for my grandchild to be born, but rattled by an inexplicable dread. It was exactly 11 p.m., and I was washing dishes when a malignant sound filled the air. It was a tune I hadn't heard in years. Happy birthday to you on the piano. The piano was in Samuel's room, locked and untouched for 5 years. I had sealed the room with my husband's things as I just could not look at it. His accident had been so tragic, but tonight he was here. Trembling, I grabbed a flashlight and stepped down the hall. The noise was growing louder with each step as I approached Samuel's door. His room door was usually locked, but now it was slightly open. Just as I was about to push open the door, the music stopped. I hesitated and then stepped inside. The room smelt damp, the dust of years untouched. At the corner stood the piano, just as we left it, but something didn't feel right. The lid was open and some unseen hand had played it. I stepped back from the room, slamming the door shut behind me. Maybe it was the storm, maybe the wind had somehow triggered the keys. Deep inside, however, I knew that wasn't the case. As I head towards the kitchen, I hear footsteps, soft as if someone were dragging their feet across the wood floor. But I was alone there. Marco and Juliana weren't there, and nobody else entered the house. The footsteps came from the living room directly below Samuel's room. I froze, straining to listen. The footsteps stopped, but then, again and again, out of the corner of my eye, this shadow darted across the hallway. I spun around in my seat, feeling my heart pump, but nothing's there. I told myself it was my imagination playing tricks on me, so I tried to calm myself down. Then the lights flickered again, and the house went dark. Now there was only my flashlight, casting a mere beam of weak light in the oozing, inky darkness. I stumbled backward in the kitchen, breathing shallow and ragged. It's as if the air had made itself thick, heavy with oppression. I heard the low, soft creaking, as if a door was opening, though every door in the house was shut. The radio on the counter suddenly came to life. Samuel's voice whispered my name, Judith, Judith. I clutched my head, trying to block it out, and knocked the radio off the counter. It fell to the floor, shattering, but the whispering continued, louder and more insistent. Then, as abruptly as it had started, the whispering ceased. Silence. The shrill ringing of the phone cut through the stifling silence. I grabbed at the receiver. Maybe it's Marco with news that's good. Hello, I asked. There was a long moment of complete silence at the other end. Mom. It was Marco, but his voice cracked with tears. I don't know how to say this, but Juliana, she didn't make it. The baby. They're both gone. As Marco's words sank in, the rain outside intensified even more, hammering against the windows with relentless fury. It felt as though the rain was trying to wash away the horror of the moment, but instead, it only deepened the suffocating weight of loss. I sank to my knees, numb. The world around me crumbled. I could hardly register what he said, my mind reeling. How was that to be? For the past month, innumerable nights had been spent waiting for tonight, hoping it would bring life into this house, not death. But as I clutched the phone, the piano continued to play again, the same haunting melody. Happy birthday to you. Only this time, it was slower, warped. Tears and terror mixed as I realized the truth. It was not coincidence. Samuel was here, in the house. The tune wasn't for me, or Marco, or even Juliana. It was for the baby, the child who would never be born. The room upstairs had slammed the door to Samuel's room shut and had flickered its lights back on again. Then I knew that the house had awakened and no one was alone anymore. Story 2 by François Martin. It had rained on the streets of Paris as if the night itself was mourning that evening. Tonight was the first death anniversary of my 3 brothers, Alexandre, Julien, and Laurent. All of them had been brutally murdered by a gang called La Griffe Noire. The mere name struck terror into the hearts of Parisians. The gang had claimed so many lives, and my brothers were among the victims that were gunned down in this house. I lit candles in front of their photographs, performed rituals I had read about, hoping to bring some peace to the restless souls. The rain lashed against the windows. It was the least I could do for my brothers. And then, a sound pierced the silence of the rain, shattering its rhythm. 3 gunshots. My blood ran cold as I knew the sound came from the locked room, the room where my brothers had been murdered. I stood there, my mind flooded with those memories. Since then, I had locked that room, but now gunfire was echoing in its echoes and seemed to claw back the past to the present. Summoning up the courage, I took a step toward the room. My heart was pounding, and my hands were shaking as I forced the door wide open. What first bothered me was the smell, the acrid aftertaste of gunfire, fresh and unmistakable. Smoke curled through the air in tangles like ghosts of spent bullets. But what my stomach churned inside me was the rifles, 3 of them resting against the wall. They did not belong to me, and I had never seen them before. The weapons seemed to be the remnants of the violent death that had claimed my brothers. Overwhelmed and stepping back, I stumbled when I suddenly saw Alexandre. He turns his head away from me, gazing in vain through sunken eyes. His dead eyes focus down the wall and seem to gaze at me but are staring only at that thing. No, it can't be. My brother's dead. Then, trying to clear my head by blinking my eyelids a few times, I open them once again, and he is gone. The rifles still rest on the wall, and Alexandre's body is gone. Panicking, I ran down the hallway, my feet pounding myself deaf to the persistent drum of rain. The house turned into some twisted screw around me. I reached the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face. It was water droplets across my skin along with sweat. The sound of the rain falling on the roof was much louder now. It was almost as if the storm itself was trying to break into the house. I gazed at the mirror, hoping to see my reflection and nothing more. Instead, Julien stared back at me. He was hanging from the wall behind me, blood dropping from his mouth. But as I spun around, the bathroom was empty. There was no one there. But I had seen him. I knew I had. Petrified, I stumbled into the corridor. This time I heard the screams. 2 voices. Then I saw Alexandre and Julien stood at the end of the hall, their clothes drenched with blood, with their eyes fixed on me. The rain lashed against the windows, now worse, as if heaven itself was indignant. I ran out of the house and into the rain. The rain hit me like cold daggers, my fumbling for my car keys causing my hands to shake so violently that getting the door open was a desperate struggle. Yet somehow I managed and jumped inside. The rain continued its assault, slashing against the windshield as furiously as my heart was pounding. And then I slammed the door shut, gasping for breath. But when I peered into the rearview mirror, my blood turned to ice. Laurent, my 3rd brother. He lay in the back seat, pale and sickly, but his eyes gleaming. He grinned at me, his teeth stained with blood, and his voice, low and mocking, echoed in the confined space. "Where are you going, François?" I shrieked, stomped on the accelerator, but the car would not start. Laurent's laughter filled the car, a cruel rolling sound, riving out the rain. The windows misted, and I felt the weight of his gaze on me, every drop of terror sipped to its last morsel. In that moment, I realized that no one was going to get away from them. The brothers came back, not for justice and peace, but for me. Story 3 by Arjun Ratul. My entire life was spent in Mausinram in Meghalaya state of India, where the rain doesn't play around. It's a companion. Most days I did not mind it, but one night I realized that this rain could hide much more sinister things. It was a stormy late August evening. It had been raining all day. By dusk, the roads were almost flooded. I returned from visiting my parents, a few kilometers away from where I reside. It was quite a dash inside as I tried to shake the water off my jacket and settle into the warmth of my home. I put the kettle on for some tea and sat by the window, looking out into the storm. The power had gone off, which wasn't at all uncommon during these heavy rains, so I lit some candles. I tried to build interest in my book, but with every gust of wind, which came howling by, I found myself on edge. Then I heard it, an unmistakable knock at the door. 3 sharp taps. This first time I thought it might be a branch, but the knock sounded too human. I laid my book aside and waited. The rain pounded against the roof and the wind roared, but there it was again. 3 knocks, this time louder. I hesitated. It was near midnight, and nobody should be out in a storm like this. Drawing close to the door, I peered through the peephole. Nothing. There was something a bit strange, but I had assumed it was the weather. I triple-checked the locks on the door and windows. Barely had I sat down when I heard knocking again, but this time it was at the window. I turned in the window, which was right to the side of my chair. Through the rain-soaked glass pane, I could still see a faint outline of a figure standing in the yard. I was frozen with indecision. My phone was dead, and I wasn't venturing out into that storm. The figure stood there, and I was afraid to blink, hoping that it would just disappear. Then, without any warning, the figure slowly turned around and began walking toward the back of the house. I fetched a flashlight and approached the back door. My flashlight struggled to cut through the thick sheets of water. I scanned around the yard, but the figure was nowhere to be seen. I continued walking around to the back of the house. At that moment, I had just about made it back inside when I heard a low whisper, barely audible above the storm. It was coming from the edge of my woods. I swept my flashlight through the trees, but it plunged into darkness. As night fell, the last thing I kept saying to myself was to go to bed. I kept repeating, "It's just the storm." My mind was playing tricks on itself because of the rain. It was already over midnight when I felt the commotion of running water wake me up from my sleep. I was first thinking it might be the rain, but I did not hear that. It was the shower in my bathroom. It had turned itself on. I slowly got out of bed and started walking to the bathroom. My hands were shaking because I was approaching the door. As I opened the door, I saw the shower was running full blast. Confused, I reached in and shut it off, thinking maybe a pipe had burst. But as I was turning to go, the shower came on again. I stopped there, frozen in my breath. The water was running once more, but it was no longer clear. It was dark and thick and blood red, pouring down the walls and staining everything. I backed away in horror. Over the sounds of blood flowing from the shower, I heard whispering, chanting in some strange ancient language. I did not hear any words at all, but then I heard my name, Arjun. It was my name, said in that voice. It was all around me. Then I saw the figure outside the window. Its face was pressed against the glass. Its smile stretched impossibly wide. Its eyes gleamed with a sinister glint as it watched me. I slammed the bathroom door shut and stepped back. I rushed back to my bed, pulling the blanket over me. The whispers continued. I could still hear the water running, the blood pooling in the bathroom, and that figure outside, still watching. I shut my eyes, praying for it all to stop, for morning to come. But the figure's grin remained burned into my mind, its smile as wide as ever. I realized the terrifying truth. The storm had brought something with it, and it wasn't going to leave, and neither was I. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more creepy stories. Which of these true stories gave you a chilling experience? Let us know. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and remember, sometimes the scariest stories are the ones that are real.